My name is Luce, and for weeks I told myself I was imagining it. Perfume doesn't evaporate out of a sealed bottle. Certainly not Chanel No. 5, the anniversary gift Mark gave me 6 months ago, the one I rationed like a luxury during wartime. Yet each morning the glass felt lighter in my hand, as if some invisible guest had pocketed my scent while I slept. Mark stood at the dresser, tightening his navy big meeting tie. I lifted the bottle from my vanity. The gold label winked. The amber liquid did not. Half a bottle stared back. Half, when I'd worn it maybe twice since autumn. "Honey, have you seen my perfume?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "What perfume?" he said without turning. "The Chanel, the one you gave me." He shrugged in that polite, distant way he'd perfected. "Why would I touch your perfume, Luce?" In the mirror, his left eye twitched, the tiniest tremor. I set the bottle down. The soft tap on the glass sounded, absurdly, like a clock. At work, the unease rode with me. A stone in my shoe I couldn't fish out during meetings about impressions and brand recall. I'm paid to notice patterns, spikes, dips, the outlier that hints at a story. All day I thought about the bottle, the angle I leave it at, the shadow it throws, the weight it should have in my palm. 2 days later, in the hallway outside our apartment, Mrs. Patterson paused with her ancient poodle. "Oh, Luce, your perfume is divine. I caught a whiff yesterday afternoon. Takes me back to Paris." "Yesterday afternoon?" I repeated. "Around 2, she said cheerfully. I smiled with my whole face except my eyes. "It lingers," I offered. "Old buildings. Perfume doesn't linger 6 hours. I carried the mail upstairs like contraband." Inside, the apartment was tidy, plausible, wrong. The bed was made, but not our way. I placed my pillow-centered, embroidered edge, kissing the headboard. My father was military. I fold like a prayer. Now it sat a half a hand to the right, angled, as if someone had tried to mimic my ritual from memory. The throw blanket was folded, but not into my thirds. Somehow that was louder than a scream. "Long day?" Mark called from the bathroom. "The longest," I answered, touching the blanket, feeling the ghost of unfamiliar fingers in the weave. His phone buzzed on the nightstand and fell silent. Lately he kept it face down, screen locked with a code he changed every other Tuesday. He used to nap with his phone open on his chest like a baby bird. That night, I took the bottle to the lamp and drew a hairline pencil tick where the liquid rested. A private contract with myself. No accusations, no tears, just data. If the level dropped while I was gone, it wouldn't be my anxiety. It would be gravity with a motive. Morning choreography. Toast, coffee, keys in the bowl. He kissed the air near my cheek and said he'd be late. Reynolds wanted another pass on the quarterly report. Sarah in accounting had told me Reynolds leaves at 5 on the dot for his daughter's soccer. I rinsed my mug and left. The pencil mark waited on the vanity, like a witness willing to testify. Work swallowed 8 hours. When I came home, the kitchen smelled like basil and garlic. Mark stirred sauce and scrolled his phone with his other hand. "Thought I'd surprise you," he said. "It smells wonderful," I said, and walked straight to the bedroom under the pretense of changing. The line on the bottle sat 1/8 of an inch above the new liquid level. Not evaporation, a taking. Over dinner, he told me about traffic and budgets, and a client he called by her first name as if it were a joke they shared. "Busy day?" he asked finally. "The kind where the printer eats the presentation," I said. "Yours?" "Back to back," he said, twirling pasta, not meeting my eyes. "Was Reynolds impressed?" A muscle twitched in his cheek. "He can be particular." "He left at 5, I said softly. He didn't hear me, or pretended not to, and we ate in a quiet that sounded like snow. My body woke me before the alarm, as if truth wanted a head start. I lifted the water glass Mark had left by the sink. On the rim, a crescent whisper of color caught the light. Not my deep wine red. Coral, the kind that flatters fair skin and blue eyes, the kind I never wear. I held the glass to the window. The lipstick was so faint it could have been a rumor, but once you see a pattern, you can't unsee. The hairs in the drain, finer, paler than mine. The blanket folded wrong, the pillow angled. The perfume line slipping, polite, relentless. The neighbor who smelled me when I wasn't there. Mark came up behind me, breath warm from sleep. "You okay?" he asked, careful with the kind of care you give a cracked vase. "Just thinking about the day," I said. setting the glass down with deliberate softness so it wouldn't ring like an accusation. He kissed my temple and went to shower. I wiped the lipstick from the rim. The stain smeared, proof turning to ambiguity under my thumb. Panic flared, then cooled. If this was going to be my life, 2 sets of footprints in a home with only 2 keys, I wouldn't stand in the doorway and argue with shadows. I would turn on every light. I would name what I saw. On my way out, I adjusted the perfume bottle so the label faced forward, aligned with the mirror frame. A calibration, an oath. The scent of aldehydes lingered at my wrist from last night's test dab. Beneath it, I caught something metallic and thin, like the taste of a bitten tongue. On the train, I opened a fresh page in my notebook and wrote, "Evidence log." Then I listed the facts as if facts could outfit me in armor. 1. Perfume level down. Mark moved. 2. Pillow angle wrong. 3. Blanket fold wrong. 4. Blonde hair in drain. 5. Coral lipstick on Mark's glass. 6. Neighbor smelled perfume at 2 p.m. while I was at work. I added a 7th line and left it blank. Some truths arrive in pieces. I closed the notebook and saw my reflection in the window. A woman who used to be soft. A woman learning precision. I looked again at the faint crescent on the water glass. So slight I might have missed it if I hadn't already decided to see. The morning after my list began, the bottle sat where I'd left it, label squared, pencil mark crisp. I paused before leaving for work, staring at it like a gambler watches the dice, waiting for proof that chance wasn't in charge. Mark kissed the top of my head. "Don't wait up tonight. Client dinner." I nodded, pretending to be the wife who trusted. Inside, my pulse drummed against my throat. The mark on the bottle would tell me if trust was still possible. At the office, I distracted myself with emails until Sarah from accounting leaned on my cubicle wall. "You and Mark still doing date nights?" Reynolds swears it keeps his marriage alive. Her casual mention of Reynolds snagged at me. "Reynolds leaves by 5 every day," I said before thinking. Sarah blinked. "Yeah, soccer practice. Why?" "No reason." I smiled, the polite kind that seals secrets shut. By the time I got home, the pasta pot sat drying in the rack, and Mark was on the couch in gym clothes scrolling his phone. "How was the client dinner?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Canceled last minute. Ordered in Thai instead. Want leftovers?" His lie was smooth enough to polish, but the scent in the air betrayed him. Sweet, powdery, floral. My perfume hovering like a ghost. "Are you wearing cologne?" I asked lightly. He laughed. "Probably from hugging you this morning." We hadn't hugged that morning. We hadn't hugged in weeks. That night I waited until he was asleep. In the soft hum of his snore, I slid out of bed and tiptoed to the vanity. The perfume level had dipped again, just enough to slice doubt from certainty. My pencil line now floated above the surface like a memory of innocence. I wrote it in my log. 8:00 p.m., level lower. The next morning, the scarf appeared. Tucked between Mark's gym clothes, coral pink, Hermes. I lifted it into the light, silk rippling like water. My throat tightened. Not mine. Never mine. "What's that?" His voice startled me. He stood in the doorway, damp from a run. "Laundry," I said evenly. "Must have gotten mixed in." "It's yours." He shrugged too quickly. "I don't wear coral." His jaw hardened. "Maybe from the cleaners." "We haven't been in weeks." My voice was calm, but my heart pounded. "Why are you interrogating me, Luce? It's just a scarf." A Hermes scarf. $400 of someone else's life bleeding into mine. I logged it. That afternoon, Tom from next door knocked. His voice was awkward, careful. "Hey, Luce. Weird question. Do you guys have someone staying with you? Saw a blonde woman go in yesterday. She had a key." The word key echoed like a gunshot. "No," I lied smoothly. "New cleaning lady." He nodded, relieved. "Oh, good. Just making sure." When the door shut, I pressed my back against it, shaking. A key. She had a key. Mark had given her access not just to his time, not just his body, but our home. My sanctuary had been franchised without my consent. That night, as we ate dinner side by side, I studied him. The easy way he twirled spaghetti, the absent smile at the TV, the faint coral lipstick still staining the water glass he'd abandoned in the sink. Every surface in the apartment now felt contaminated, carrying fingerprints of a life I wasn't part of. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "Just tired." "You should sleep more. You've seemed on edge." On edge. like I was the problem, like suspicion was the disease instead of a symptom. After he fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling. My father had taught me that every puzzle has patterns if you're disciplined enough to look. This wasn't paranoia, this was method. I whispered the word like a vow, evidence. In the morning, before leaving for work, I slipped a thin voice-activated recorder behind the photo frame on Mark's nightstand. The frame held a picture from Santorini, both of us tan, smiling, drunk on the illusion of forever. Now the smile looked rehearsed. My hand trembled as I slid the frame back in place. I wasn't sure what scared me more, that I'd hear nothing or that I'd hear everything. At my desk later, the email alerts and client reports blurred. In the reflection of my monitor, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Her eyes were sharp, restless. Her lips pressed into a line. She didn't look like a paranoid wife. She looked like a detective. That night, Mark claimed he had late meetings. I microwaved leftovers alone, staring at the perfume bottle with its sinking line. By the time the door finally clicked at 10:15, my log already had a new entry. 10:00 p.m. Bottle lower again. Traffic was murder, he muttered, loosening his tie. I smiled, all teeth. Of course. Inside, the evidence piled like sandbags against a rising flood. I had the perfume, the scarf, the lipstick, the pillow, the hairs, the neighbor, the key. And soon, I'd have his voice. I went to bed early, pretending to sleep. But I wasn't sleeping. I was waiting. Because now I knew. The truth wasn't slipping through the cracks of my marriage. The truth was seeping in, drop by drop, through every spray of Chanel No. 5 that wasn't mine. The following Saturday, rain slicked the city streets like glass. Mark claimed he had a team workshop and left at dawn in his pressed shirt and too bright smile. The perfume bottle on my vanity stood like a sentinel, the pencil line mocking me. I dressed quickly, slipped my notebook into my bag, and decided it was time to escalate. Instead of running errands, I stationed myself at the coffee shop across from our building. From my corner table, steam curling from a bitter cappuccino, I had the perfect view of our entrance. Hours stretched like taut string. Every time the door swung open, my stomach knotted. Couples came, delivery men, teenagers laughing too loudly. But at 11:47, she arrived. Blonde hair pulled into a loose knot, coral dress brushing her knees, heels clicking like punctuation marks. She didn't hesitate, didn't even glance around. She walked straight to the door, produced a silver key that caught the sunlight, and let herself into my home. My home. I gripped my coffee cup so hard the cardboard buckled. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. I could rush over, confront them, blow the fragile facade apart. But my father's voice, patient and unyielding, whispered in memory, "You don't charge a battlefield blind, you map it first." So I waited. When I finally climbed the stairs, I didn't use my key. I pressed my ear to the door, heartbeat pounding in my skull. Inside, laughter, glasses clinking, music low and jazzy, the kind Mark always complained about when I played it. And then I heard it, his laugh. Not the hollow chuckle he gave me out of habit, but full-bodied, unrestrained, delighted. A sound I hadn't heard in years. My hand tightened on the knob. I imagined bursting in, watching shock ripple across his face, her scrambling for her clothes. But rage without proof is a scream in the wind, and I needed more than noise. I walked away. My heels sank silently into the carpet, every step measured, deliberate. Back in the cafe, I opened my notebook and wrote in bold, 11:47. Blonde entered, silver key, coral dress, heard laughter and glasses. The barista gave me a look as if I'd been there too long. I ordered another coffee. My hands shook as I stirred in sugar, but my handwriting was steady. If they wanted to script me as the clueless wife, they were about to discover I was writing a different story. That night, Mark came home humming, of all things, dropping his jacket on the chair like a carefree bachelor. "Sorry I'm late. Reynolds dragged us through another round of revisions." "Of course," I said, setting my fork down gently. "Everything okay?" he asked, catching my gaze. "Fine, just tired." He leaned down to kiss me, and the scent clung to him again. Floral, familiar, my perfume. "Did you open my Chanel?" I asked, too casually. He froze for a fraction of a second before forcing a laugh. "Still on about that? Maybe you just used more than you thought." My smile didn't reach my eyes. Maybe. Later, when he showered, I slipped into the bedroom and retrieved the recorder I'd planted days ago. My hands trembled as I slid it into my pocket, the weight of it heavier than I'd expected. In the silence of my car parked 3 blocks away, I pressed play. Static, footsteps, the rustle of fabric. Then her voice, light, amused, edged with disdain. She doesn't even notice, Mark. I used the perfume again today. She noticed, his voice replied. Asked me about it last week. And? I told her she was paranoid. She backed down. Luce hates confrontation. Their laughter filled the tiny speaker. My stomach dropped. How much longer do we keep sneaking around? She asked. Just a few more months. I need to move assets first. Make sure she can't touch them in the divorce. Divorce. The word hit like a fist. Not just betrayal of the body, but of the life we'd built, the years I'd given, the trust I'd offered. I shut off the recorder, chest heaving, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched. In the rearview mirror, my face looked carved from stone. By the time I walked back into the apartment, Mark was lounging on the couch, hair damp from the shower, remote in hand. You're out late, he said. Stopped for a drive, I murmured. He nodded, eyes already drifting back to the TV. In that moment, I realized something chilling. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore. He believed he knew me, docile Luce, the wife who hated confrontation. He thought I'd accept whatever scraps of attention he tossed me, too timid to dig deeper. He was wrong. I went to the bedroom, sat at the vanity, and studied the perfume bottle. My pencil mark floated far above the liquid line now, proof carved in graphite. The amber scent was no longer luxury, it was evidence. And evidence, once collected, is a weapon. Sunday dawned with pale light filtering through the blinds, making the room feel both familiar and foreign. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the recording in my mind, her laughter, his voice calling me paranoid, the word divorce slithering like poison. Once, I'd thought betrayal would break me. Instead, it made me sharper, like glass after it's been struck. I rose before Mark stirred, pulled on jeans and a sweater, and slipped out. Across the street, the cafe was quiet, half empty, the hiss of the espresso machine a kind of cover. I took my usual corner seat, notebook open. I wasn't Luce the wife anymore. I was Luce, the archivist of betrayal. At 10:56 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Don't wait for me. Lunch with Reynolds. I smirked. Reynolds again, his favorite phantom. At 11:32, the blonde appeared. This time, dressed down in jeans and a white blouse, hair tumbling loose like a careless halo. She carried a tote bag, the kind women use when they're comfortable in a place, not visiting. She didn't hesitate, didn't glance around. She slid her silver key into my lock and vanished inside. I waited. My cappuccino grew cold. Time blurred. Then, faint but unmistakable through the open cafe door, laughter drifted down from my floor. Mark's laugh, full, unguarded, joyous, the kind I hadn't heard directed at me in years. The sound cut deeper than the recording had. Evidence was one thing. Hearing him happy without me was another. I rose, heart pounding, and crossed the street. Each step toward the building felt like crossing into enemy territory. Outside my own door, I hesitated, pressing my ear to the wood. Glasses clinked. Music played. The low murmur of voices weaving intimacy into the air. My hand hovered over the knob. One twist and the facade would crumble. I could confront them. Her half-dressed, him scrambling for excuses. I pictured the shock in their eyes, the satisfaction of catching them in the act. But then another image, their laughter fading into silence, then turning on me. Him accusing me of paranoia again. Her smirking, knowing I had nothing but rage. Anger without strategy was useless. I needed more than a scene. I needed a case. I turned away, forcing my steps silent down the hall. My throat burned, but my notebook in the cafe steadied me. Back at the table, I wrote, 11:32. Blonde entered with tote bag. Heard laughter, jazz, glasses. Mark present. The barista shot me another wary look. I ordered tea this time, letting the steam fog my glasses as I planned. That evening, Mark breezed in at 7:45 with a bouquet of daisies, my namesake flower, the irony cruel. For you, he said, like he'd just thought of it. They're beautiful, I murmured, arranging them in a vase. The petals brushed my fingers, soft and mocking. Reynolds kept me late again, he said, tossing his jacket onto the chair. Of course. My voice was calm, even tender. We ate takeout together. Thai, his choice. The scent of basil filled the room, but beneath it lingered something floral and powdery. My perfume, riding the air like an uninvited guest. You're quiet, he observed, eyes on the TV. Just tired. He smiled faintly. You've seemed overwhelmed lately. Maybe take a few days off work. Overwhelmed, as if the problem was my nerves, not the evidence piling like bricks around us. That night, after he fell asleep, I crept to the closet and examined his jacket pockets. Receipts, a gas station 2 towns over, a French restaurant I'd never been to, a business card for a jeweler, tucked deep. I photographed everything, careful to return each slip of paper exactly as I'd found it. Back in bed, I stared at the ceiling. The old Luce would have cried into her pillow. This Luce was making maps. Every lie, every clue was a breadcrumb leading me deeper into the forest, and I would follow until I found the wolf's den. The next morning, I pretended to sleep as Mark kissed my forehead. After he left, I sat at the vanity and studied the perfume bottle again. The liquid gleamed in the light, lower than ever, the pencil mark floating high above. I lifted the bottle, inhaled deeply, and almost gagged. The scent I had once loved now smelled like intrusion, like betrayal distilled into amber. I set it down carefully. My mother used to say, "Don't ignore what's right in front of you. Small things reveal the big truths." She was right. The perfume wasn't just disappearing. It was leading me somewhere, and I was ready to follow. 3 days passed before I had the courage to press play. Mark had been working late twice, both nights returning after 10, his tie loose, his excuses looser. Both mornings the perfume level had dropped again. When I finally retrieved the recorder from behind the honeymoon photo, I carried it like contraband into my car and locked the doors. The underground garage was quiet except for the faint drip of water echoing in the corners. My thumb hovered over the play button. Once I listened, I couldn't unhear. I pressed. At first, static. Then the sound of drawers opening, a laugh, hers. Younger than I expected, high and sharp like glass breaking. "I used her perfume again today," she said. "She noticed," Mark's voice replied, casual, almost amused. "She asked about it last week." "And?" I told her she was paranoid. She backed down. Luz hates confrontation. Their laughter spilled into the car, filling every corner. My pulse pounded in my ears. "How much longer?" she asked. "I'm tired of sneaking around." "Just a few more months, Shimimans," he said. "I need to move assets first. Make sure she can't touch them in the divorce." The word divorce snapped like a trap. I stopped the recording, lungs heaving as though I'd run. My hands shook on the steering wheel. He wasn't just betraying me in body, but dismantling the life we'd built, brick by brick, while I made dinner and folded laundry. He was planning my erasure. I stared into the rearview mirror. The woman looking back had shadows under her eyes, but there was steel in her gaze. Not broken, not yet. That evening, I told Mark I was going to Boston to visit my sister. He barely looked up from his laptop. "Sudden," he muttered. "She's going through her divorce. Thought I'd support her." "That's nice of you. When will you be back?" "Sunday night." He nodded, already calculating his freedom. I could almost see the text he'd send the moment I left. But I didn't go to Boston. I checked into a hotel 20 minutes away under my maiden name, paid cash. The clerk didn't even look at me twice. Then I drove back to our neighborhood and parked down the block, engine off, waiting. At 11:06 a.m. Saturday, she arrived. Blonde, tall, hair in a messy bun, wearing one of Mark's old college sweatshirts. His sweatshirt, the one I'd bought him years ago. My stomach twisted. She carried groceries, walked in like she belonged. I waited an hour, then approached my own door. The sounds inside were domestic, unbearably so. Eggs sizzling, jazz humming low, his voice soft as he kissed her neck. I eased the door shut again before they could see me. My heart hammered so loud I thought it would give me away. Back in the car, I sat frozen, staring at the wheel. My perfume bottle was on the kitchen counter, not on the vanity. She had moved it, claimed it. As I sat there, Mrs. Patterson shuffled by with Mr. Whiskers. Her timing, uncanny as always. "Back from Boston already?" she asked cheerfully. I forced a smile. "Just realized I might have left the stove on. Would you mind coming upstairs with me, just to check?" "Of course, dear," she said, delighted to be useful. Together we rode the elevator. My keys slipped once in my hand, on purpose. When the lock finally clicked, I pushed the door wide, letting her enter first. The gasp she gave was worth every second of waiting. Mark and the blonde were on the couch, her straddling him, both half undressed. They sprang apart, faces flashing shock, rage, fear. "Oh my," Mrs. Patterson whispered, hand flying to her chest. "Oh my goodness." Mark fumbled for his shirt. "Luce, this isn't—" The blonde smirked, unashamed. "I thought you were in Boston." Clearly, I thought. "Mrs. Patterson, thank you," I said smoothly. "We're all set here." But she lingered, transfixed by the wreckage. "Thank you," I repeated, firmer this time. Finally, she shuffled out, muttering. The door closed behind her. Silence stretched. The blonde adjusted her blouse with practiced calm. "I should go." "No," I said, my voice steady, cold. "Stay. We should talk like adults." Mark's eyes narrowed. He recognized something in my tone, something dangerous. I looked directly at her. "You've been wearing my perfume, haven't you?" Her smile flickered. "I didn't think you'd notice," she said. "I notice everything," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Want to hear what I've noticed?" I pressed play. Their voices filled the room. "She's paranoid." She backed down. Luce hates confrontation. Mark went white. "You recorded us?" he stammered. "You gave her a key to my home," I countered. "I think we're past worrying about privacy." The blonde, Jessica, I would later learn, crossed her arms. "This is between you two." "No," I said, blocking her path to the door. "You don't get to play house in my home and then walk away when it gets uncomfortable." Her chin lifted, defiant. "Jessica." "Well, Jessica," I said, my voice slicing the air. "How long?" 8 months. She said it like it was nothing. 8 months. Through Christmas, through our anniversary, through every lie he'd told. I turned to Mark, but he said nothing. His silence was answer enough. A cold clarity settled over me. The old Luce might have wept, pleaded. This Luce only smiled. "You're right," I said softly. "He doesn't love me anymore. Maybe he never did. But you know what this is about now, Jessica. Not love. Consequences." The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Jessica stood with her arms crossed, her coral nails tapping against her sleeve, as if daring me to break. Mark lingered behind her, eyes darting between us, like a trapped animal calculating escape routes. "You don't scare me," Jessica said finally. Her voice was cool, but her jaw tightened. "Good," I replied. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make you understand." I walked to the kitchen counter where the perfume bottle now sat, moved from my vanity as if it belonged to her. I picked it up, holding it between us. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. "A perfume bottle," she said flatly. "No," I corrected. "It's evidence. Every drop that went missing led me here, to this moment, to you." Jessica rolled her eyes, but Mark shifted uncomfortably. He knew me well enough to recognize the edge in my voice. "Luce," he said, stepping forward, his hands raised as if soothing a wild animal. "Let's not—" I cut him off. "Let's, because I'm done being the paranoid wife you both laughed about." Jessica smirked. We laughed because it was true. I set the perfume down with deliberate care, then pulled out my phone. With one swipe, the screen glowed, displaying the photos I'd taken. Receipts from restaurants, lingerie boutiques, gas stations miles away. I held them up one by one. La Perla, Chat Lauron, gas station in Brookhaven, jewelers on Fifth, all from nights you claimed to be working late, Mark. His face paled. "You went through my things?" "Our things," I corrected. "Joint accounts, joint life, joint lies." Jessica's smirk faltered. "You really kept all of that?" "Every slip of paper," I said. "Every inconsistency, every thread you thought would unravel quietly. I've been weaving them into a rope." Mark's voice sharpened. "This is insane." "Insane is giving your mistress a key to your marital home," I snapped. "Insane is underestimating me." The air between us crackled. Jessica shifted uneasily now, sensing the shift in power. "You're bluffing," Mark said. I turned my phone again, this time showing the photo of a lease agreement with his signature. Riverside Heights, 2-bedroom apartment. The landlord was chatty. "Thought Jessica was your wife. Did you tell her that, Mark?" While I was at home wondering why my perfume kept disappearing. Jessica's eyes widened. "You told me you hadn't started divorce proceedings yet." Mark's lips parted, scrambling for words. I cut him off again. "You also told the landlord she was a doctor. She isn't, is she, Jessica?" Jessica's face flushed. "I am in pharmaceutical sales." "Interesting," I murmured, "because Mark told me you were his client." Her eyes flickered to suspicion dawning. Mark lunged for the phone. I stepped back. my thumb already hovering over the cloud backup app. Try it, I said coldly. Every file is saved, every receipt, every recording. I have more than enough to bury you both. Jessica looked between us, calculating. For the first time, her bravado cracked. She saw what I wanted her to see, that she wasn't Mark's partner in power. She was a pawn, replaceable, disposable. 8 months, I repeated, my voice quieter now. You sat at my table. You used my perfume. You wore my husband's sweatshirt. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was stupid? Jessica lifted her chin. He told me you were distracted, obsessed with work, cold. And you believed him? I asked. Because liars always tell the truth about their wives. Mark snapped then, slamming his hand against the wall. Enough! His face was red, veins in his neck bulging. You're making a fool of yourself. I met his fury with calm. No, Mark. You did that for me, when you underestimated the woman you married. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Jessica's uneven breathing. Finally, I said, pack a bag. Mark blinked. What? You heard me. Pack a bag. Stay at Riverside Heights, since you seem to like it so much. You're not sleeping here tonight. You can't kick me out of my own home. Our home, I corrected. And yes, I can. Because I have more than perfume and receipts now. I have testimony. Neighbors saw her enter. Mrs. Patterson saw you both today. And if you don't leave quietly, I'll make sure the board at your firm hears the recording where you laugh about moving assets before divorce. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. Jessica looked away, suddenly fascinated by the floor. Go, I said softly. He hesitated. Then, without another word, he disappeared into the bedroom. Drawers opened. A suitcase thumped. Jessica moved toward the door. I'm not sticking around for this circus. You already did, I said. Now leave. She slipped out silently. Mark emerged 10 minutes later, suitcase in hand. He paused at the door. You'll regret this. No, I said. The only regret I have is not seeing you clearly sooner. When the door shut, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The apartment felt different instantly, as though the walls themselves had exhaled relief. I stood at the counter, staring at the perfume bottle. So small, so ordinary, yet it had cracked open the life I thought I knew, revealing the rot beneath. And I wasn't done, not by a long shot. The silence after Mark's departure was strange, almost theatrical. I walked through the apartment as if seeing it for the first time, the chair where he always draped his jacket, the dent in the couch cushion that still held the shape of his body, the faint trace of his cologne clinging to the air. Every object was a ghost of him, and yet the rooms felt lighter without his presence, as though the walls themselves had been waiting for him to leave. I should have collapsed, should have cried. Instead, I opened my notebook. I wrote the date, drew a line beneath the last entry, and added, Mark expelled from home. Jessica confirmed affair, 8 months. Riverside Heights apartment located. It read like a police report. Maybe that was what I had become, a detective chronicling my own life as a crime scene. Later that night, curiosity pulled me toward the closet. His jacket from yesterday hung there, his scent still clinging to the fabric. I checked the pockets with deliberate precision. A crumpled gas station receipt, 2 towns over. Why drive that far when we had 3 stations within a mile? A French restaurant bill, Chat Laurent, $156, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine. The same night, he'd told me Reynolds was revising reports. And then, in the inner pocket, a folded slip of paper, numbers scrawled in his handwriting, too short to be a phone number. A code. I photographed everything, sliding the items back exactly as I'd found them. My phone was filling with evidence, a gallery of betrayal. Each photo felt like a blade, sharp and undeniable. When I returned to the vanity, the perfume bottle caught the lamplight. I lifted it, swirling the amber liquid that had become my unwanted companion. You're not just perfume anymore, I whispered. You're proof. The next morning, I began my search in the filing cabinet. Tax returns, insurance forms, investment statements, all things I'd seen before, but never really read. Now I examined them with different eyes. On the latest return, a line item snagged me. Deduction for a home office, but not at our address. An entirely different one. My pulse quickened. Another property? Another lie? I copied the address into my phone. Downtown. I didn't wait. The building was unremarkable. Gray stone, narrow windows. Inside, a directory listed small firms, names I didn't recognize. But on the 3rd floor, I found it. Taylor Consulting, LLC. Taylor, my husband's surname. My heart pounded as I tried the odd key I'd noticed weeks ago, the one he claimed was for the gym locker. It fit. The office was small, tidy, 2 rooms. On the desk, a computer hummed softly, and on the wall hung a whiteboard crowded with notes, client names, financial projections. Real clients. Real money. But the filing cabinet told the real story. Contracts, invoices, payments, numbers that made my head spin, hundreds of thousands flowing in over the last 2 years, money I'd never seen in our accounts. I sank into his chair, the leather creaking under my weight. He hadn't just cheated on me with another woman. He'd cheated me out of a life. A picture frame lay face down on the desk. I turned it over, expecting Jessica's smile, but it wasn't her. A woman I didn't know stared back, elegant, mid-40s, with 2 children at her side. My stomach flipped. Who was she? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Is this Luce Taylor? A woman's voice, measured, sharp. Yes, who is this? My name is Patricia Morrison. I believe you know my husband, Richard Morrison. The name clicked instantly. I'd just seen it on the whiteboard as one of Taylor Consulting's biggest clients. I'm familiar, I said carefully. We need to talk, Patricia replied. Her tone carried no invitation, only command. About your husband, about what he's been doing. A pause, my throat felt dry. Where? She gave me the name of a coffee shop downtown, her voice clipped, efficient. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., don't be late. The line went dead. I sat frozen in the chair, surrounded by contracts, invoices, proof of a double life. The scent of toner and old paper filled the air. For weeks I thought the missing perfume was the beginning and the end of the story, but the truth was bigger, much bigger. Mark wasn't just betraying me. He was building something else, another life, another fortune, another future that didn't include me. And Patricia Morrison, whoever she truly was, had just opened a door into a deeper betrayal I hadn't yet imagined. The cafe Patricia chose was the kind of place where people in power met to discuss mergers over lattes. Polished chrome, marble tables, hushed conversations. I arrived 10 minutes early, but she was already there, seated upright with a black leather folder before her. Patricia Morrison was older than me, elegant in that practiced way money affords. Her pearl earrings glinted when she looked up, her smile tight, not warm. Luce, she gestured to the chair opposite. Thank you for coming. I slid into the seat, nerves coiled tight in my stomach. You said this was about our husbands. She studied me for a beat, as if measuring whether I was ready for the truth. Then she opened the folder and spread several documents across the table. Bank statements, wire transfers, property deeds. Richard and Mark, she began, her voice clipped, have been funneling money into Taylor Consulting for years. A shell company they set up, real enough on paper, but its purpose is clear, to hide assets from us. I forced my voice steady. I just found the office yesterday. Contracts, invoices, money I never saw in our accounts. Patricia gave a mirthless smile. Then you already know half the story. The other half is Miami. I frowned. Miami? She slid another paper toward me. A lease agreement. Office space downtown Miami. Signed by both Richard and Mark. They've already hired staff, purchased equipment, set up corporate structures. They intend to relocate, take everything and start fresh. Without us. My throat tightened. And Jessica? Patricia's laugh was bitter. The secretary for their Miami office. Or at least that's the official story. But clearly her duties extend beyond filing. I pictured Jessica in my sweatshirt at my stove, moving my perfume as though it were hers. A secretary playing house while my husband built a new empire. Patricia leaned closer, lowering her voice. They think we're ignorant. That we'll cry about infidelity while they quietly drain our lives dry. But I'm not here to weep, Luce. I'm here to fight. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the flicker of solidarity. What do you propose? An alliance. Her gaze was sharp. You have the recordings, the evidence of the affair. I have forensic accountants tracing every penny they've moved. Together we can dismantle them. My pulse quickened. Legally? Legally, financially, entirely. I sat back, processing. Weeks of feeling isolated, dismissed, gaslit. Now someone else saw the same man I did. Not just a cheater, but a strategist. Not just a betrayal of the body, but of the entire marriage contract. Patricia poured sugar into her coffee, her movements precise. Richard thinks I won't fight back. He believes I'll cling to the lifestyle, the charity galas, the photographs in glossy magazines, but I'd rather burn it all than let him walk away unscathed. Her fury was cold, not wild, a blade sharpened over years. I felt the same steel in my own bones. I pulled out my phone, opened my evidence log, and slid it across to her. Here, the receipts, the scarf, the lipstick, the recordings. Proof he's not just dishonest with me, he's careless. She scanned the entries quickly, nodding. Good, very good. You've been meticulous. That will matter. A strange pride stirred in me. For weeks, Mark painted me as paranoid. Now someone recognized the discipline behind my vigilance. Patricia closed her folder with finality. We will coordinate. My attorneys will handle the financial fraud. Your recordings will add weight. Together we will strip them of every advantage. They wanted a fresh start in Miami? Let them start over in prison. The words sent a shiver down my spine. Prison. I hadn't let myself imagine consequences that large. I'd been focused on survival, but Patricia was talking about annihilation. She reached across the table, her hand steady on mine. You don't have to do this alone anymore. For the first time in weeks, I let out a breath that wasn't jagged. The cafe buzzed softly around us. But in that moment, it felt like we were the only two women in the world who understood the exact flavor of betrayal. I gathered my notebook, my hands trembling, but not from fear. Something else pulsed through me now. Resolve. When I left the cafe, the air outside felt clearer, colder. I pulled my coat tighter, my steps sharp against the pavement. Mark had underestimated me. Jessica had mocked me. But with Patricia beside me, I wasn't just the paranoid wife with a perfume bottle. I was the beginning of their undoing. The private investigator slid the thick folder across the diner table like it was a loaded weapon. The vinyl booth smelled of bacon grease and burnt coffee, but the papers between us smelled of ink and rot. Jessica's rot. Jessica Palmer isn't who she says she is, he said, stirring his coffee without drinking it. Her real name is Jennifer Polson, 31, born in Ohio, married twice, both husbands cleaned out and left with debt. I flipped through the reports. Mugshots blurred into divorce filings, police reports, victim statements. One man had lost his savings, another his business. Both described the same pattern, a woman who slipped into their lives with perfume and laughter, only to drain them dry. She's not alone, the investigator continued. The so-called brother? Tommy Paulson, her husband. They've been married 5 years. They run cons together. She distracts. He siphons accounts, forges signatures, sets up shell identities. I stared at the grainy photo of Jessica, Jennifer, wrapped in Tommy's arms, kissing him passionately. The same mouth that had left coral lipstick on my glasses. How did Mark not see this? I whispered. The investigator chuckled darkly. He thought he was too clever to be conned. Classic arrogance. She's good, Luce. Fake social media going back years. Friends who'll vouch for her, even fake family members. But she's a predator, and predators don't change. My hands trembled as I traced the outline of her smirk in the photo. Mark thought he'd been building a secret life with her. He didn't realize he was prey. Do you have proof of the partnership? I asked. Enough to raise eyebrows. Surveillance photos, financial trails, a storage unit under both their names. Give me a few days. I'll have more. I nodded, tucking the folder into my bag like contraband. The weight of it steadied me. Back home, I spread the evidence across the kitchen table. Police reports beside my perfume bottle. Photographs of her with Tommy beside the scarf she'd left in my laundry. My evidence log grew longer, darker. Mark had betrayed me. Jessica had betrayed him. And now I had proof of it all. That evening, as if the universe wanted to test my composure, Mark called. His voice was strained, brittle. Jessica's asking for money, medical bills, from that allergic reaction. This is your fault. I almost laughed. My fault? You doctored the perfume, didn't you? Poisoned it. Don't be absurd, I said calmly. Perfume doesn't agree with everyone. Maybe she should stick to her own. You're vindictive, Luce. This isn't you. No, I said softly. It isn't the old me. The old me believed you. The old me ignored the evidence. This Luce pays attention. I hung up before he could answer. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. An email. The subject line, I know what you know. Inside, this is Jennifer. I assume you figured out my real name by now. We should talk, in person. I stared at the screen, pulse racing. She knew I had the truth, but what she didn't know was how I planned to use it. I typed back, "No meetings. Send proof. Everything you have on Mark and Richard. Bank accounts. Miami. Or I hand your file to the police tomorrow." The typing dots blinked, vanished, blinked again. Finally, "Fine, you'll have it. But I want immunity. I disappear. You forget you ever knew my name." Immunity. She was desperate. Good. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and let the weight of the night settle. Jessica had thought she was the hunter. Mark thought he was the mastermind. Richard thought he was untouchable. But the truth was clear now. They were all feeding on each other like wolves in a pit, and I was the one standing above, holding the rope. For the first time in months, I smiled. Her first email attachment landed in my inbox just after midnight. Grainy screenshots of text exchanges between her and Mark. Discussions about the Miami office, about money transfers, about keeping loose in the dark. One thread made my stomach twist. Mark joking that I was too trusting, too meek to ever see it coming. I read every word twice, my jaw clenched until it hurt. Trusting. Meek. That was the version of loose he'd built in his head, the one he believed he could keep forever blind. He had no idea I was already dismantling his empire piece by piece. The second attachment was a scan of the Miami lease, both Mark's and Richard Morrison's signatures clear in black ink. My husband's handwriting stared back at me, familiar and alien all at once. By 1:00 a.m., another file arrived. An audio recording. His voice, low and conspiratorial, speaking to her. "Once I move the assets, the divorce will be clean. She won't see a dime. I've been planning this for 2 years." 2 years. He hadn't just stumbled into betrayal. He'd cultivated it, nurtured it like a secret garden while I watered the plants in our living room and paid half the mortgage. I closed my laptop and stared into the darkness. The betrayal had layers now. Infidelity, fraud, deception spanning years. Jessica thought she was buying freedom by sending me proof, but she was giving me something more valuable, control. The next morning, Patricia and I spoke on the phone. Her voice was brisk, energized. "Our attorneys are ready. The forensic accountants are circling. Now we need them to move." "They're cautious," I said. "If they think we're hostile, they'll hide what's left." Patricia paused. "Then we make them believe we're not hostile. We pretend we want reconciliation." I blinked, then let out a slow breath. "Play the wives who forgive." "Exactly. We draw them out. Make them consolidate everything for the Miami move, then we strike." The audacity of it made me smile. My rage had been burning for weeks, but now it had a strategy. That evening, I sat across from Mark at the dinner table. He'd asked to meet, voice subdued over the phone. He brought flowers. Roses this time, always the wrong choice. He never remembered I hated roses. "You seem calmer," he said carefully. I lifted my fork, twirling pasta I didn't want. "I've been thinking about us. 15 years is a long time. Maybe we shouldn't throw it away so quickly." His eyes flickered with relief, hunger, calculation. "I've missed you, Luce." "I've missed what we used to be." I forced a wistful smile. "Maybe counseling, a fresh start." He reached for my hand, squeezing it like he had when we were newly married. "Yes, counseling. We can fix this." Inside, I laughed. Fix this. He didn't know what fixing looked like anymore. When dinner ended, I logged the conversation. Mark receptive to reconciliation. Willing to meet counselor. Believes I want to save marriage. I emailed Patricia. He's biting. Prepare the net. But even nets need bait. The following afternoon, I met Jessica, Jennifer, in a dim cafe far from our neighborhood. She wore sunglasses and a baseball cap, her hair tucked up, but her coral lipstick gave her away. "You're bold," I said. "You're desperate," she replied. Desperate people don't hold leverage. I set the recorder on the table, pressed play. Her voice filled the air. "How much longer do we have to keep sneaking around?" Her face tightened. "What do you want from me?" "Get him talking," I said. "Record everything. The money, the Miami plans, the assets. I want his voice admitting it all." "That's entrapment." "Not if you're doing it for your own protection," I countered. "Besides, he already thinks you're his partner. He won't hold back." She hesitated, chewing her lip. "And what do I get?" "You get to disappear, with the money he already paid you. I won't hand your file to the police. That's the deal." Her jaw worked, then she nodded once. "Fine. But if he finds out—" "He won't, because he underestimates women, both of us." We parted without shaking hands. That night, Mark texted me. Dinner Friday? Neutral ground? Let's talk about moving forward. Neutral ground. A restaurant. Safe for him, he thought. I typed back, yes, Chez Laurent. The same place his credit card statement had betrayed him with Jessica. His reply came instantly, perfect. I set the phone down, my reflection in the dark window staring back at me. He thought he was drawing me into reconciliation. But Friday night, at that table, I would draw him into his own undoing. Friday night pressed heavy with humidity, the kind of air that carried the smell of rain even before the storm broke. I stood before the mirror, fastening the pearl earrings Mark had given me on our 5th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. The black dress I chose clung to me like armor, a costume designed to look like surrender. At Chez Laurent, he was already waiting, hair freshly cut, suit pressed, a single rose laid across the table. My least favorite flower, of course. He smiled when he saw me, the kind of smile he reserved for clients he needed to charm. You look beautiful, he said. Thank you. I sat, smoothing my dress, as if I were nervous. In truth, my pulse was steady, each beat deliberate. He ordered Bordeaux without asking, the expensive one he always saved for special occasions. The waiter poured, the candlelight flickering in our glasses. To any outsider, we looked like a couple rekindling something fragile but real. I've been thinking about us, Mark began, swirling the wine. 15 years. That's not something you throw away. I tilted my head, studying him. No, it's not. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. I want to fix this, Luce. I miss you. The words might once have cracked me. Now they sounded rehearsed, copied from a script he'd used on Jessica, or Jennifer, or whoever she was pretending to be. We can try, I said softly, but only if we're honest. His smile faltered, just for a breath. Of course. Dinner passed in waves of small talk. His mother's health, my sister's new baby, the neighborhood gossip. He played the role of devoted husband with a precision that almost impressed me, but his eyes betrayed him. Each time I mentioned anything close to business, they darted, wary. When dessert arrived, creme brulee I never liked, I excused myself to the restroom. In the quiet of the tiled walls, I texted Patricia, confirmed. He's still running. Miami. Soon. Her reply came quick. Authorities ready. Let him move. Back at the table, Mark had ordered champagne. He raised his glass. To new beginnings. I clinked mine against his. New beginnings. I sipped, then set it down. My fingers trembled, not from nerves, but from the weight of what I was about to do. I hired a private investigator, I said suddenly. His glass froze midair. What? I know about Taylor Consulting, the hidden accounts, the Miami office. My voice was calm, surgical. All of it. He went pale. Luce, that's... Illegal? Yes. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Wire fraud, tax evasion, asset concealment. I wonder what the IRS will think. You're bluffing. His voice was tight, but sweat glistened at his temple. I pulled my phone from my clutch, tapped a recording, and set it on the table. His voice spilled into the candlelit air. She's too trusting to ever figure it out. By the time she does, I'll be in Miami with everything. His mouth opened, closed. That was private. She recorded me. Jessica, I cut in. Or should I say Jennifer? Did you know she has a husband? Tommy. They run cons together. She's been using you, Mark. Just like you used me. For once, he was speechless. The waiter arrived with the check, and I smiled up at him. Thank you. We'll take it. When he left, I leaned closer, my words sharp. 3 years ago, when you opened that office, you could have told me the truth. 2 years ago, when you hid the accounts, you could have come clean. 8 months ago, when you gave her a key to our home, you could have faced me, but you didn't, and now it's too late. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the table. What do you want, Luce? Money? The apartment? Say it. I held his gaze, steady and cold. I want the truth. Was any of it real? Our marriage? Our life? Or was I just a prop in the story you told yourself? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, his mask dropped. His eyes hardened. You were safe, predictable. You made me look successful, but you were never enough, not exciting enough, not ambitious enough, just not enough. The words cut deep, but instead of bleeding, I felt release. He'd spoken the truth I'd always feared, and the truth freed me. Thank you, I whispered. I rose, gathering my clutch, for finally being honest. Where are you going? He demanded, his voice rising. Home, my home. I leaned close enough for him to see the steel in my eyes. You should probably catch an early flight to Miami, because tomorrow evening the FBI will be waiting at the airport. His face drained of color. I dropped cash for my half of the meal on the table. I don't want to owe you anything, not even dinner. As I walked out, his voice followed me. Luce, you can't do this. You don't understand. I turned once, just before the door. I understand perfectly. I'm ending this story on my terms, not yours. Outside, the storm had finally broken. Rain lashed against the pavement, soaking my dress in seconds. But I didn't run. I stood under the awning, letting the cold drops sting my skin like baptism. I pulled out my phone, dialed Patricia. When she answered, I spoke over the roar of thunder. It's done. He's going to run. Good, she said, her voice sharp with satisfaction. Richard's already in custody. Your husband is next. Lightning split the sky. I closed my eyes, breathing in the storm. Mark thought he'd written me as a footnote. Instead, I was the ending he never saw coming. The morning paper landed on my doorstep with a hollow thud. On the front page, Mark's photograph stared back at me, his eyes wide, his jaw tense, captured as federal agents led him away in handcuffs. Beside him, Richard Morrison, equally pale, equally undone. The headline screamed of fraud, conspiracy, millions siphoned away. I carried the paper inside and set it on the kitchen table. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the ink until it blurred. My husband, once the man who'd made me laugh in Santorini, was now a criminal in print. By noon, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from neighbors, emails from colleagues, even a voicemail from Mark's mother, her voice cracked with disbelief. I ignored them all. The only call I took was from Margaret, my attorney. It's over, she said briskly. The accounts are frozen. With the charges, Mark has no leverage. The divorce will be swift. You'll get the apartment, your share of everything, and compensation. I don't want compensation, I said quietly. I just want it done. There was a pause. You're entitled, Luce. I'm entitled to my life back, I corrected. That night, I opened the medicine cabinet and reached for the perfume bottle, the catalyst. Only a few drops remained, clinging to the glass like stubborn memories. I thought about throwing it away. Instead, I set it high on the shelf, out of reach. A relic. Not of him, not of us, but of the lesson I'd learned. Pay attention to the small things. The next day, Patricia called. Her voice was calm, almost triumphant. Richard's singing to save himself. Every deal, every hidden account, they'll all come out. We did it. We did, I echoed, surprised at the gratitude I felt toward this woman I barely knew. Betrayal had introduced us. Justice had bound us. Later, I sat at my vanity, a new perfume bottle before me. Jasmine and sandalwood, nothing like Chanel No. 5. I sprayed it on my wrist, inhaled deeply. The scent was foreign, unfamiliar, but it belonged to me alone. The doorbell rang. Mrs. Patterson stood there, casserole dish in hand, her eyes soft with sympathy. Thought you might not feel like cooking. I let her in, poured her tea. She chattered about the neighborhood, about Mr. Whisker's arthritis. For once I didn't mind. The ordinary felt like salvation. When she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my laptop. Fingers hovering over the keys, I began to write. The story of a woman whose perfume kept disappearing. The story of small details that revealed devastating truths. The story of how destruction became the doorway to rebirth. I wrote about Mark and Jessica, about Riverside Heights and Taylor Consulting, about betrayal so sharp it cut through years of illusion. But mostly, I wrote about the bottle, the fragile glass vessel that had exposed an ocean of lies. Hours passed. When I finally looked up, the city was asleep. The apartment was quiet, wholly mine. I stood before the mirror, lifted my glass, and whispered to the woman reflected back, "This scent is mine, and mine alone." She smiled, tired but resolute, bruised but unbroken. For the first time in months, I believed her. And though the perfume bottle was nearly empty, I no longer needed it, because I had learned the truth. Sometimes the smallest things reveal the biggest betrayals. And sometimes what you lose shows you what you're meant to find, starting with yourself.